If you're struggling to find out what the differences are between a penetration test and a vulnerability scan, you're actually not alone. Many people find themselves actually out trying to buy something they don't even know what they're looking into. A penetration test is very different from a vulnerability scan, and we're going to show you why the differences are. It's very confusing as some companies claim that they're doing a penetration test, when in reality, in the back, they're doing nothing more than a glorified vulnerability scan. So if you're like most people, you're struggling as to how a penetration test works and what needs to be done and conducted during the penetration test. How do you know you're actually getting a penetration test versus a vulnerability scan? There are many ways to find this out, and we'll discuss that today. We'll discuss why penetration tests may be pricier and why the cost difference actually translates to quality. You'll discover that software tools should play a role, but the human element, the experience and intuition of a seasoned tester are irreplaceable. We'll discuss on why a genuine pen test may take considerably longer than just an hour to perform. But how can you ensure that you're getting the real deal? We'll dive into those types of questions that should be raised during the scoping process and why a comprehensive penetration test is more than just a list of vulnerabilities. Sample reports, screen captures, and actual remediation recommendations are all part of the service. So how can you tell a real pen test from a fake pen test? Let's talk about it. The difference between a vulnerability scan and a pen test are many, but the main one is the automation versus the manual, the actual human testing. The key takeaway is that a vulnerability scan is an automation tool, and it will do what the program is designed to do. It will look for vulnerabilities that it was told to look for. A prime example of that will be if you program a robot to go into a room and get a cup of coffee on the left-hand side of the table. And when you move that cup of coffee to the right-hand side of the table, the robot will go in there and not complete the task. Whereas the human, they make the decision to alter the task to accommodate the change of where the cup of coffee is sitting on the table. The biggest misconception I come across on penetration testing is that it's automated. If it's only automated, there's no human factor. There's no eyes on glass testing being performed. Scans will target what they're programmed to find. While most people agree that pen testing should be conducted, the real issue we come across is budgeting. Most corporations don't give a big budget or a budget for cybersecurity. However, IT teams are limited with fundings, and they choose an automatic scanner over an actual real pen test. That can be problematic. Real pen tests are generally more expensive than an automated solution secondary to the human factor. You have it at eyes on glass, there's a pen tester there that's doing the assessment versus a scripted scanner and giving you a generic one. Pen testers will poke around the network and will find holes that a scanner would not be able to identify. Some people ask if the use of software is a bad thing to do during penetration testing. Actually, we don't feel that way. Nefarious actors are out there and they use scanners as well to test their networks to find out where they can get into your network. We use scanners as well to do light lifting. Essentially, that scanner is going to go and look for the low-hanging fruit and help our tester dive into more into your network. Once they actually into your network, that's where the money's at. You don't want your tester doing the low-hanging fruit digging when the scanner can do it for them. You would rather have them in the core of your network looking for vulnerabilities that the scanners will not pick up. A penetration tester's experience is crucial to the test. It's better to have somebody with experience that knows what they're doing than have a novice tester that doesn't understand the in and outs and intricate parts of the network. When we get questions often, how long does a pen test take? The actual time varies on the scope. If the scope is small in nature, you're looking at 2, 3, 4 days of testing. If it's more robust, you're looking at weeks to even months. It just really varies on the scope size. So let's talk about red team exercises and what's involved, the cost, and how long it actually takes. Red teaming exercises are a collaboration between the IT teams or their SOC and the actual emulators within the penetration testing company performing the work. The goal of this test is to prevent a breach. It's more about giving the defenders the tools necessary to quickly identify and halt the breach when it happens. This type of testing needs to take months in preparation, and actually in the back end of it can take months. The actual test only takes a couple days, maybe a week at most. The type of questions account managers should ask during the scoping process vary depending on the type of test the client is looking for. A good example is that they can do network testing, they can do web application, they can do Wi-Fi. So they're looking at internal and external testing, what type of IPs or how many IPs, and if there's a compliance requirement. Other things to consider are how many servers are involved, how many workstations. The type of structure you're actually working in can better help us determine and assign the test that needs to be done. It is very important for account managers to understand, one, what they're doing, and two, what IPs they have and which ones are assigned to them. The worst thing we can do at MainNerve is actually get an IP and it be just off by one digit and we're testing someone else's IPs. That can actually get us into legal matters, and it can actually get us into a blacklisting of our source IPs, which is a bad thing. So it's very imperative that you know your IPs. A thorough scoping process is very important. One of the main reasons is if we don't know there's a compliance standard and we don't know the compliance that you're generating and trying to get toward, we may miss the entire mark. So if you have a compliance of XYZ, MainNerve will actually come back and look at the scoping of XYZ. We may be able to narrow that, or we may be able to broaden it more, depending on the compliance standards for your company. A sample report from a company is very important. A major thing at a sample report is a writing style. Will it be beneficial for the company? It's good to get a report so you can actually see what the writing style is of the company and if it'd be beneficial for your company to have that type of report. Examples of the report also is, what style do you want? Do you want the DREAD report or the DREAD rating? Or would you prefer a CVSS rating? That's very important to let the testing company know ahead of time. DREAD rating is more curtailed to a smaller to medium-sized business, whereas the CVSS is more detailed and outlined. It has a lot more rating systems than what the DREAD would, and it may overload a small to medium-sized business. I get asked a lot, do our reports contain specific remediations? Whenever possible, our reports will be defined as a generic solution of all issues. That will give the client the information necessary to adapt the mitigations and finding based upon their needs and their configurations of their network. Screenshots of the network are critical in a report. Every penetration test should have a screenshot embedded. This actually demonstrates that it was accomplished and that it was actually tested and done. The clean bill of health actually will come across on some clients where there will be no findings. That screenshot is crucial as it shows we were inside the network and we were testing. Getting a clean bill of health is a good thing, but it actually demonstrates and shows that we were within the network and we were testing. MainNerve ensures full transparency with our customers. By doing this, what we do in the communication process, that is our key, is how we communicate with our clients. After we actually get the proposal back, our delivery team is assigned to that case, also a full-time penetration tester. All information is exchanged between the pen tester, the delivery team, and the client. The customer will have access to the delivery manager 24 hours. During the actual testing, they will have access to the penetration tester 100% while they are testing. I often get asked a lot, how can I tell the difference between a real pen test and a scan? It actually may be easier to tell when you are not receiving a pen test if you actually look at the report and there's a list of vulnerabilities, but does not show those vulnerabilities were identified and how they were validated with screenshots. Screenshots are your key to a real pen test. If you only have a list of vulnerabilities and no screenshots, you are most likely getting an automated scan rather than an actual pen test. If you're getting quotes from penetration testing companies and one of them is just really low, you can almost guarantee that it's going to be a scan and not an actual pen test. Don't get me wrong, scanning is very important. MainNerve does use scans. We do that to gather the low-hanging fruit. At the end of the day, you want your tester to do the heavy lifting by testing the core of your network. Thanks for watching. If you're vetting companies for a pen test, MainNerve would love to talk to you. At MainNerve, we're all about integrity and doing what's right by our customers. We'll be quick to tell you what you may or may not need. There's no fluff here in our company. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for more videos like this.